Okay, we are now playing with the Teens 2-speed motor, Victrola 11, probably about 1915, 1916. It's had its springs repacked, everything's been done on it, cleaned up, it's spinning clear, spinning smooth. The complaint on this motor was that it was thumping and bumping, typical. This motor was not touched from probably the 1920s or even the teens. Thick gelatinous grease that just was holding the springs back. Both springs were good. They are original Victor springs. There's nothing to say that spring wasn't changed in 1928 or 1935 or whatever, and they used an OEM spring. But they do say Victor on them. They are Victor springs. They are 17 marked. Not 17, C marked. That was 17 foot. Everything's been cleaned up and greased. New grease has been applied. It just was a matter of scrubbing, a tremendous amount of scrubbing on this motor. It was a lot of baked on old grease on there that we had to get out. I had to do some machinations to get it into this cabinet to test it. The crank doesn't line up, so I don't have the crank attached right now. I had to lift the motorboard out to wind it up. It's already spun over about 4 or 5 times just to distribute the grease inside the spring barrels evenly and on the gears. Strangely enough, this is a Victrola 9 cabinet, and that motorboard fits perfect. Even the hinges are in the same spot. The only difference is that the lid stay seems to be a little bit longer, and the crank location's in a different spot. But that's okay. You know, I'm just testing it. I do not have the machine that this goes to here. So I can't do anything else except set the speed, and that's it. Just to make sure the motor's not doing anything it shouldn't do, I can just spin it. I don't think there's going to be any problem with power in the springs. This machine was playing records before. This motor was playing records before when it was with its owner. The springs had some fight left in them. You know, there was no weird cracks or splits to deal with, nothing. They were all in good shape. So, you know, nothing to worry about there. The gear teeth are all very clean, very straight, no problems. This will play for many, many, many years after this now. And if the springs ever do need replacing, that's easy enough to do. They're available, actually. You know, that's one part you don't worry about is breaking a spring on a Victrola motor. So far as I can see, they're all available. All of them. Victor only used a small handful of springs, despite what motors might be in here. This particular spring is 1 1/4 inch by 17, pear-shaped hole either end. So that's not hard to find. They did like 45 bucks each, I think, maybe a little less than that. They are available and from multiple sources too. So never worry about breaking a spring. Well, unless of course you don't do your own work and then you have to pay someone to do it. Then, you know, it gets a little bit more expensive. While the spring may cost you 45 bucks, average cost if you sent this to a shop is generally 100 bucks a spring. I don't know why, but that's what they charge. So, you know, and I shouldn't say that because it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I don't want to say anybody's overcharging or whatever, but there's a tremendous amount of scrubbing and detail work involved in picking out these old grease and stuff like that. So, you know, they charge accordingly. But this had all the lock nuts. As you can see, they were all still now back in place. The governor was fine. There was nothing wrong with the brass gear. Just how I like to see them. Nice and filthy and caked on crud from the day. And everything good underneath. Look how clean that is. It's amazing how nice these motors can be once you get them cleaned off. They're never going to sparkle like a new penny. The only one that does that is the Garage motor. It's the only one I think I've ever seen on a Victrola motor. It's like it was meant to be seen. You know, these weren't. These were meant to be locked away in the cabinet where only the repair guy or you occasionally with a bottle of oil is ever going to see them. But still, they did a nice job on them. They're definitely presentable. As you can see, it's spinning nice and easy. No problems. And more importantly, no thump and bump. No weird vibrations and all that stuff. It's ready to go back on and be played once again.